Well, I certainly want to thank Glenn for all of his support over the last year, and certainly Greg for all of his support over the last umpteen years since we started the partnership with the Rotary Clubs. I remember there was a breakfast over at Starbucks, and I showed one of the presentations on PowerPoint, and it just has snowballed from there. And it's been great because with the Rotary Club donating the funds to buy the books, then we've been able to get into these at-risk schools, and we've probably done, between all the Rotary Clubs in Southern Nevada, 100 schools over the years, 100 school visits, and we have 150, 170 elementary schools in Clark County, and probably half of them have been through the Summerlin Rotary Club. So the generosity is very much appreciated. So for those who have not been to a Deputy Dorkface presentation, we always begin with an attention getter. Glenn had mentioned this to me. I have Buster the bird, who I fly, gets everybody all excited. Of course, Buster always attacks girls. That's what I say. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's what I tell the kids. So I fly Buster as an attention getter, get them all focused and excited. And just a little backstory behind this bird is many, many years ago, back in the 80s when I was a disc jockey, there was a band called A Flock of Seagulls, and their record company sent these to us to help promote the band. And when I was going and doing presentations at schools, I started flying this around as a joke, and it just caught on. And now I'll be out and about, and I'll have people taller than me, 25, 30 years old. Hey, you came to my school when I was in 3rd grade. You still fly that bird? Don't remember anything I say, but they remember the bird. And from there, I talk a little bit of the background on the Deputy Dorkface books. This was the first one, started out as a bedtime story I used to tell my kids. This is about a town. This is how Stinkville got cleaned up. It's about a town where nobody takes a bath. And that's how we got all started, because when my kids were young, they were having so much fun, they didn't want to stop down and take a bath at the end of the day. We followed that up with how Sugaropolis got dessert back. This is our top seller. This is about a town where the kids are too full for dinner, but they always have room for dessert. And all relate to that. I think my kids at age 24 and 26 are still like that. And so in this story, the deputy bans dessert, the kids protest, a big food fight breaks out, and then they have to negotiate healthier eating from the jailhouse conference room. How Manorland got its manners back came out. This is where lightning strikes the Welcome to Manorland sign. It slices Manor clean off, and all the manners go away. In fact, the manners are so out of control that the teachers run screaming from the school. So Deputy Dorkface and the kids get together and build the kids their own town, the Good Manners Manor, where the kids are in charge. No parents, no adults, no teachers, just kids. And they're in that town for 3 days, and they completely trash the place. So they want to come home, but they can't come home unless they defeat the parents in the manners matchup. It's kids versus parents for manners supremacy, best 2 out of 3. And then we followed that up. The most recent book, How Trutherton Got Its Honesty Back. This is a story about where the kids are running for student council, and they're promising to make recess 45 minutes longer. They're promising no more homework. So Deputy Dorkface takes the stage and bans honesty. Honesty is out the window. So now everybody's lying to each other. The kids are being untruthful. The teachers are being untruthful. And they pretty much have to figure out that that's probably not the best way to do things. And a big chase scene breaks out. We have a lot of fun with these books, subtle life lessons, not pounding anybody over the head with a hammer, but we try to do them with action, with humor, and have a lot of fun. So we keep the students engaged. As Glenn said, we could be talking up to 500 at a time in the larger schools, all sitting down on the multi-purpose room floor watching the screen, preferably in the darkness, and then I have the books memorized, so I storytell. After I'm done telling one of the stories, we do a very fun interactive presentation on the importance of reading. I have the students come up with one job that does not require reading. And we get the same ones all the time. It's like baseball player. It's like, well, they have to sign a contract. Trash man. Can't come to my house if he doesn't read the street signs. But this has sort of grown antlers, and I've now done this presentation in 14 states. But there's nothing like being at home, because I did the one job that doesn't require reading in Las Vegas, of course. And there was one student, fourth grader on the east side of town. He had that smirk. And I know when they've got that smirk, there's going to be a really good answer. He raises his hand with that big smirk. So I call him and he looks at me and says, "Pole dancer." And I'm like, it's a pretty good one, but got to read the dollar bills. And so after we do that interactive on the importance of reading, then I show the presentation that takes the journey through the publishing process. And that's what I was going to share with you this morning. So go through a couple of the books, talk about how they began as a bedtime story. Those are my kids when they were just a little bit younger. Our son Colin, now 24 and 6'3". He's actually in Chicago. He works for a company called Eagle Trading, and they trade agriculture commodities futures on the Chicago Board of Trade. Our daughter Taylor is 26, and she is the marketing director now for the Las Vegas Aces, the WNBA team, who announced that their season will be starting soon in front of no fans, and they're going to be doing it in Bradenton, Florida. I show the students how the stories always begin with an outline, and this is the outline for Sugaropolis, where I'm kind of an idea person. I don't just sit on my computer and write a story. To me, that's hard to do. I just come up with ideas, and I try to get 40 to 50 ideas, put them all down on paper, then I'll create an outline and I'll write the story out from there. Once I have the outline done and I write the story out, I take it to the elementary school near my house over at Lummis Elementary, and I try it on all different grade levels, first grade, fifth, third, and this is long before we do illustrations. And so I'm reading it off paper, certainly don't have it memorized by then, but my goal is, how does it flow? Are the students reacting the way I want them to react? Are they laughing when they should be laughing? Is there some intensity when there's an intense scene? And if I'm getting that reaction, then I feel like we're getting somewhere with the book. But if I'm not, then the rewrites get a little more involved. And sometimes they'll throw out ideas. It's like, that's not too bad. So I might incorporate that in the story. So we go back and forth several times before we have the illustrations. Then I write it out for a final time after all this, and I'm feeling really confident. It's been kid tested, different grade levels, different age groups. So imagine my shock when I get a page back from the editors that looks like this, a homework assignment. Now, fortunately, all of them don't like this, but on this particular page, they wanted my writing to be more active, less passive. And up on top, you'll see they start putting in the instructions from the illustrator. And trust me, this does not hurt my feelings. I have discussions with people all the time who have written a book, and they're asking me and for what I went through, the process I went through, and I say, make sure you always have other sets of eyeballs, because as talented as one person might think they are, you get other eyeballs, they pick out things, they throw some ideas, this is good, but this is not so good because, and it always makes the story better. Even if it's one set of eyeballs, it makes the story better. So I go through this with the editor, and I certainly respect what they do so much that I take exactly what they did and cross out their stuff and put my own stuff in. And we go back and forth. We must go back and forth between 30 and 40 times, sometimes passionately, respectfully, arguing, but at the end of the day, the product always comes out better in the editing process than it was before we started this. Then we have a huge problem, and that is that I have absolutely zero artistic talent whatsoever. So we had to find an illustrator, and yeah, I can't even, stick figures are a challenge. So we looked at 150 different illustrators. And when I was sitting in the when I was sitting in the publisher's office, and we're looking at one portfolio after another, going through each page, it just all started blending together. And it was tough to tell the difference until we saw this. And this gentleman's work really stuck out, because what I really liked was when he had scenes with a bunch of people, all the people were different. One thing I noticed, and I'm in awe of what illustrators can do. So I'm not really the right person to judge, but as somebody who is going to partner with an illustrator, I wanted somebody who could be active and funny. But a lot of people's work, I noticed, had virtually the same type of character, just a different nose or different hair or something like that. But Eldon's work, Everybody was unique, and he's fast, and he's funny, and he's talented. And so I wanted him to illustrate the book. His name is Eldon Doty, and he's been illustrating for 40 years. And we sent the request to his agent in New York City, and they turned us down. Sent it again to him in New York City. The agent turned us down again. So the publisher started reaching out to other illustrators. And I said, whoa, hold on one second. Probably the direction we'll have to go. But let me see if I could track down Eldon and talk to him about his agent. I've got nothing to lose. One shot, have a brief conversation, see if I can talk him into it, see where his head is, if he's got any interest at all whatsoever. And if it doesn't work, then we move on, because I just was really impressed with his work. So I did a little research on Eldon Doty, Mr. Big Time Illustrator with a fancy New York City agent. And it turns out he's our neighbor. Actually lives in Henderson, which is, this is an old picture of Water Street that you're seeing here. Had a house on the golf course of Sun City, Henderson. So I called him up, went to his house. I stalked him. I went to his house. Very nice man. And I sat there and we talked. We must talk for 2 or 3 hours. We talked everything you're not supposed to talk. Religion, politics. And I didn't want to talk about this as much, but I left him a copy of the first story, Stinkville, at the end of the discussion. And I said, do not read this while I'm here. You do not eat while the chef's in the kitchen. Wait till I'm gone. Check it out. If you want to be part of it, I would love to have you involved. But if you're too busy, completely understand. It was nice to meet you, and I'm just really impressed with your work. A couple days later, he sends me an email with this sketch. The first sketch, what he thought Deputy Dorkface ought to look like, and I thought, that's cool. So I forwarded the publisher. Publisher called his agent. They signed a book, and within 1 week, he had all 22 illustrations that appeared in Stinkville. But I really stress with the students that we don't just edit the writing, we have to edit the illustrations as well. In Stinkville, the kids come across the Stinkometer, provided by the Stinkville Chamber of Commerce and Air Quality Department. And originally on the sign, you'll see that one area of yellow where I wrote, really odorous. And I started thinking, how many of those students have ever gone home and said, family? Today at school, it was just a tad odorous. So they'll never use that word in their entire lives. So I changed really odorous to, no. I changed wear your gas mask to gas mask required, and I changed really odorous to really reeking. It is early in the morning for me. So really odorous became really reeking, but there's something wrong with the illustration, something we had to fix that was out of place. And it's up to the students to guess what changed. And they're looking at this and they're trying to figure out the bunnies and the sign and the grass. And of course, the author could change the words on the sign. And usually with this particular illustration, there's always somebody who guesses the brown horse has no head. So which is true. So we had to call Eldon and say, Eldon, will you please give Pegasus his head back? So we called Eldon. During the editing process, he was able to give Pegasus his head back. And so they can see how it changes through the process there. All he did was add a head, and we changed a little bit on the sign, and that's how it appears in the book. When the kids finally are given the chance to take a bath after the ban on water in this book has been lifted, everybody jumps in the lake. Now the story reads, dogs, cats, hamsters, I don't know if you can see there's a little hamster in the middle of the scene, and horses joined their owners so they could bathe too. And I called Eldon, I said, I love this, look at that, it's awesome, it's fun, it's active, this is a great, it's just one thing. And I'm not sure if this will work, but when I was writing it out, I was thinking in my head, it'd be awesome to have a horse jumping in the lake. And he said, Kevin, that's a great idea, but you're just the author. And I'm like, whoa, didn't even realize that that was part of the process. But what that means is the lowly author cannot tell the illustrator what to do. He signed a contract with the publisher. The author signs a contract with the publisher. The publisher's the boss. The illustrator does not want, nor does he need, 30 people telling him what to do. So for me to get the hamster changed to a horse, I had to call the publisher, who called the editor, who called the art director, who called Eldon and said, Kevin would like to have a horse. And he said, good idea. And that's how the sketch of the hamster turned into the cannonballing horse. And that's how it appears in the book. And that's probably the money shot in that story, Stinkville. Then is Sugaropolis, which this particular PowerPoint is based on. This is one of the first sketches from when the deputy banned dessert. The kids got together in their clubhouse in Peppermint Park, had their protest, and decided they were going to have a food fight with the deputy. And this is one of the first sketches, and they have to guess what changed. And the young man in front is throwing cabbage, but that's not what he was throwing in the book. And this is one of those things where the actual story has so much food, they don't see that that young man is throwing fried chicken. And so I have these students guess what changed. We talk a little bit about why it changed, but they're throwing out ideas left and right. There's more food, there's more watermelons. The kids aren't around the police officer, aren't around the cars yet. And of course, my favorite one, the giant pizza. My favorite one that always gets the kids to laugh. That young man in front who's throwing the cabbage turned fried chicken, he has no pants. Deputy Dorkface had to give him some pants. Of course, you have this young man on the left side holding the sign that says, peas have fleas. One of the more difficult ones we show is this one. Couple of things I point out. One, the sign in front that the young lady is holding up says, veggies and Dorkface are going down. We change to fudge fever, catch it. And the backstory on that was I didn't want Deputy Dorkface to look as a bad guy because he's kind of a befuddling guy, but his intentions are always good. He just overreacts. But what we point out on this scene is on the left side, you'll see that it's tough to read the words when there's a helicopter flying over them. So I mentioned the art director, and for aspiring potential employment opportunity illustrators, editors, and or other folks involved in the book process, there is an art director who works on these books, and they'll work on multiple books at once. And that's the person who basically does the layout. What illustration will be on the cover of the book? Will the illustration be full 2 pages or just on 1 page when you open up the book? And in this particular scene, the art director wanted to put the words in the top left corner. And you can't read the words if there's a helicopter flying over them. So the art director called Eldon and said, you need to go fly your helicopter somewhere else. I want to put Kevin's words there. I can't read his words if your helicopter's flying over them. So you'll see we started with 3 helicopters and wound up with 4, but the 2 on the left side are a little smaller, so now the words fit there. And that's actually an interesting part of the process and how those illustrations evolve as well. And this was the original sketch from the final page, and they get to see this as well, and that is we changed it from the kids playing basketball and one kid bringing the carrot cake, little crossover between the vegetables and the sweets, to Deputy Dorkface, and that evolved into that being the final scene. And they guess, oh, there were more kids, they didn't have the cakes, everything around. So it's very interactive, we get them all excited. And then if we do a, well, the last, I should mention this too, I try to give 1 slide in the book where just the most minute thing changed. And this is the money shot, the very first page of Deputy Dorkface, how Sugaropolis got dessert back. It is Main Street, downtown Sugaropolis, has all the stores, but the only thing we moved, and usually 99.9% nobody guesses this, but if you look on the donut hole, there's a little blue doorknob on the bottom donut. Little blue doorknob. Now, when I saw this, if you're looking at this from afar and holding the book, Carly is eating that candy bar, and the way her pinky is out, it looks like she has a giant blue wart on the end of her finger. Carly is my niece's name. I didn't want her running around with a big blue wart on her finger. So I said, is it possible, could we please move the doorknob to the other side? He brightened up some colors, but the only thing that moved was the doorknob. Watch the doorknob. 3, 2, 1, poof. There it is on the left side. And they usually have to guess what changed on this page, and nobody guesses that. So I get to tell them, that's a great guess, but you're incorrect. And we have oh. Is that me buzzing? but we have a lot of fun with it as it's very interactive with the students' guess. But the point is that they get to see how involved the process is as we go through the writing, the editing, the illustrating, and the publishing process. And for the time we actually have a physical book. From the time I start outlining ideas, it's really 1 year. It's 1 year. And they're like, 1 year? Because for some of these kids, that's 20% of their life. That's a long time, but it's quite a process. It's a lot of fun. And we, for the younger guys, the K through 2, because I split the presentations K through 2 and 3 through 5, or when I travel, we go K through 3 and 4 through 6. If there's a K through 6 school, we end the presentation basically there. For the older students, the intermediate students, 3rd through 5th, I'll do a mock writing exercise where they can see how much fun writing their own book is. Because I ask them at the beginning, who likes to read? Who likes to write? Who likes to draw and illustrate? Oh, everybody wants to draw and illustrate, and about half like to read, but the hands go crashing down when you ask who likes to write. So I try to show them how much fun I have writing, because I take things that actually happened when my kids were young, or in some cases still happen, and blow them up from there. It's sort of like nonfiction turned fiction. And so when we do the writing exercise with the students, the 3rd through 5th graders, we will improv a book based on lies they've told their parents. And without the parents there, they are very willing to come out and give it up, to basically admit what they told their parents and allow them to get away with something. And so I'll start the story, and their ideas will be coming out of left field, right field. And we'll spend 5 to 10 minutes and have a book together, and they can go back to their classrooms and write their own based on lies they told their parents. And hopefully it gets more kids involved. That's basically it. That's the process we go when we do the school presentations, at least the second half of it, after we've shared one of the stories. That's all I've got for you, Glenn. I think you're muted. Glenn, are you muted?
Do you think you're able to do a few pages of the book just to give people a sense of how you present it to the kids?
You really want me to do a few pages?
Just a few pages. Because it's so much fun.
All right. Now, it might be a little rusty because obviously we got shut down in March. We'll do a couple pages. Let's see how much I remember, since, you know, the memory cells aren't like they used to be. So this is how she...
Could somebody mute whoever's not muted?
Because we're going to hear something, and right now it sounds like we're in the kitchen.
No, that actually happened at a Supreme Court oral argument about a month ago.
Yes, it was not a kitchen sink either. Yeah, that made the news. So we'll do the first couple of pages of how Sugaropolis got dessert back. All right. Once upon a time in the western region of Switzerland, there was the sweetest, I told you I'm out of practice. There was a dessert lover's paradise, Sugaropolis, the sweetest town on earth. Sugarcane grew in fields all around town. The bakery baked delicious pies, cakes, and pastries. The donut hole boasted thousands of whole donuts and donut holes. And the 10,031 flavors advertised that many kinds of ice cream. The overwhelming and tantalizing aroma of yummy sweets drifted from every direction. Yummy! Actually, I get all the kids to do the yummy. At the dessert first diner, guests could spin the wheel of frosting before and after dinner to get a free dessert. The wheel was filled with pictures of pies, ice cream, sundaes, cookies, cakes, and shakes. Lucky diners waited eagerly for the arrow to point to the sweet additions to their meals. Down here, there's a picture of Brownie the dog. Brownie is sort of a sub-hero in this book because he always wants pie. On Candy Cane Lane, Carly and Haley enjoyed a freshly made chocolate cream pie. Over on Rocky Road, Andrew and Kyle stuck their fingers in the vanilla icing on the marble cake Kyle's mom had just baked. Yummy! In Sugaropolis, dessert was special. For years, everyone, especially the kids, couldn't wait to get past the meatloaf and green peas to gobble up sweets of every kind. Life for the sugary town's residents was extremely tasty until strange things began to occur all around the community. Last Saturday, a Little League player running from 2nd to 3rd dropped in his tracks and sprawled out for a snooze. Over on the school playground, kids were playing hopscotch. Mysteriously, their teeth up out of their mouths. The 100-yard dash turned into a stroll that lasted 30 minutes. The annual Sugaropolis swimming pool cannonball competition produced a flash flood. Oh, and by the way, Brownie the dog right here still wants pie. At the high school dance, the two-step was reduced to one. School had to be extended to 6:30 at night because the students needed a nap to get through the day. Finally, parents report a shocking discovery. The kids didn't have enough energy to play their video games. Their thumbs were too tired. One evening, Dylan Dorkface, son of Deputy Dorkface, told Mama Dorkface that he was just too full to finish his dinner. However, just minutes later, Dylan asked his mom, "Hey, what's for dessert?" Too full for dinner, but plenty of room for dessert? What's going on here, thought Deputy Dorkface. As the town's only official, the deputy knew he had to do something. So he jammed his deputy hat on his head, not quite straight, and raced out the door. As always, most sugar Napoleons were glued to the chocolate channel on Switzerland cable TV. Suddenly, the volume lowered, followed by 3 long, loud beeps. Beep, beep, beep. Deputy's face filled the screen. He cleared his throat and proceeded with a special announcement. This is Deputy Dorkface with an emergency bulletin for the health, safety, and well-being of all Sugaropolians. It has come to my attention that the young people of Sugaropolis are not behaving like regular kids. The reason, too many sweets. So, to return Sugaropolis to the city it once was, I officially proclaim, hereto, we're under thereby, from this day forthwith, all desserts, candy, sodas, ice cream, cookies, cakes, and shakes are banned. We now continue with our regularly scheduled programming. Uh-oh. No more yummy. Oh, by the way, Brownie the dog over here still wants pie. And then we go on to the kids. Sorry, I missed a couple spots there. It's usually they don't go 4 months without a presentation. The kids start their protest. They 2 pages of a protest here, and that is in their secret clubhouse in Peppermint Park, and they have declared war, which will be a food fight, and then it gets. And the kids love the food fight. We've got 3 pages of the food fight. We've got food flying all over the place. But we have a lot of fun with this story. And this particular story, which we think has a nice, subtle message, has turned out to be our best seller. I should mention, too, because we didn't do it at the beginning. I usually mention at the beginning that Deputy Dorkface was named just as a silly name that I came up with to make my kids laugh. Since it started out as a bedtime story, I used to tell my kids when they were younger, I just made that up. And every time I'd say Deputy Dorkface, they'd start laughing at his name, "Ooh, Dorkface." But we never made, it's not like he's just somebody with a name that's a little different. We don't really make fun of people at all in the book. There's no concern about any putting down or calling people names. He just has a silly name that makes the kids laugh. And that's essentially how it all got rolling. So we're just so grateful for the help from the Rotary Club, and not just the Summerlin Rotary Club, but especially the Summerlin Rotary Club, because they've been more generous than the others, but it's allowed us to go to visit some of the at-risk schools that are in the jurisdiction of a few of the other and we should mention that the schools we visited with the Summerlin grants have not necessarily, none of them has been in Summerlin, but they're usually on the west side here, within about 5-10 miles.
What was the moral of this particular book?
Eating healthy is probably not a bad idea.
And what were the morals of the other 3?
Well, personal hygiene, also not a bad idea. Life is a lot easier if you just tell the truth, although we don't quite say it like that. And everybody appreciates those with good manners. And again, it's not like they're instructional books or anything like that, because I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to have those subtle life lessons where it's like, hey, things work out a little better if you're just honest, if you just tell the truth, or You know, if you eat well, you tend to feel better, and it's a lot more healthy for you without, you know, with just having craziness happen, and try to do it with humor and action. So we get the message across, but we don't feel like we're, you know, just pounding somebody with it.
So Kevin, do you anticipate that since the children have been holed up at home and they've seen all of this on television with protests and the virus, do you anticipate tweaking this a little bit to answer some of those questions in their minds?
Well, that would require a new book, and unfortunately, Eldon retired. So if I do another, I know that's what I said. I give the same facial expression, and I couldn't talk him out of it either. I thought I could be a little persuasive. So I couldn't do Deputy Dorkface without Eldon. So if I create a new story based on current events, I'd have to come up with a new character too. And I've actually got a couple of stories outlined, but now I've got to come up with a whole different character. So it's in the back of my head. Greg, you still with us? I see Greg's picture.
Glenn, you're talking, but you're muted.
Yeah, Glenn, you're muted.
I think Greg probably
I
went
did
into
that to
his
be
appointment.
polite. We'll deliver the check to you personally, but not too early in the morning to wake you up.
Thank you.
And what we'd appreciate when school starts again and you're able to deliver books that are financed by us, we'd appreciate if one of us could visit with you and share the experience.
Well, I hope so. And one thing I didn't mention at the beginning, but I think it's equally as important now, is that, and Greg has been a good ambassador with that, is when we've gone to these schools in some of these communities in Las Vegas, the school administration, the principal, has no idea what Rotary does. And Greg was able to communicate about the shoes and the backpacks. And sometimes it forges bonds that, hey, here's a great opportunity for this school to get some help from the Rotary, and the Rotary to be able to do something. I know the Rotary can't adopt 170 schools where there are needs, but it just opens the eyes of these school administrators about, hey, the Rotary is out here doing this. It would be great to have them involved in our school if they can do that as well.
Have you worked with any of the other Rotary clubs in Las Vegas to the point that they're also sponsoring books
Yes.
and going into their particular geographic schools?
Well, the downtown Rotary is probably the one we've done the second most. North Las Vegas, the City of Las Vegas Rotary, and I think there was one more too. I don't want to feel badly if I leave somebody out, but someone by far and away we've worked the most with, and then North Las Vegas we've done quite a few schools, and downtown has been great too, and especially those schools that are actually right downtown.
The other club is Green Valley, I'll bet.
No, we haven't done anything with Green Valley. I'd like to. There are a lot of schools in downtown Henderson to get on that far southeast side that are definitely in need.
Well, I'll take this recording and with all the Rotary presidents, except for the ones you mentioned, because I don't want to be redundant, but for those that haven't yet been exposed to Deputy Dorkface, I'll send this to them in the next day or so with a note and with your email. Okay.
That'd be great. And hopefully we can, I doubt anything's going to happen in the fall semester, but hopefully in the spring semester we can get out there and crack it if we have a vaccine by then.
Okay. Well,
you asked if Greg was still here.
Welcome.
He is. Just in the doctor's lobby.
You're more than welcome to stay on the call for the next 5-10 minutes before we say goodbye to everybody.
Okay.
Still have people that are coming on at this point. But I want to thank you very, very much. And when you do go live, I'll certainly promote. We'll certainly promote it so that anybody from the club that wants to actually experience, it's like going to an event. I'm sure the athletes are going to miss the fans when they're playing their games. There's nothing like the interaction between you and 200 kids. So thanks very much.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate your passion, Glenn. You moved to town and boy, hit the ground running. So I really appreciate all you've done.
Well, Vegas makes it very possible. I've told people everywhere I've lived before, I've never moved to a community that is so welcoming so fast. It's an amazing place. And while it's a big city, that phrase that it's a small town in a big city, and the fact that we've created Summerlin brand through Rotary, something that Dave Cabral has worked really hard at through his vocational work. We talked about that at a district meeting a few days ago. This idea that Summerlin is like its own small town in Vegas, that's been a big reason that we've expanded to nearly 70 members in 2.5 years.
Well, maybe you could run for mayor of Summerlin.
It only takes about 22,000 votes, right, to be mayor in Vegas?
Well, I'm talking about just a Summerlin. You could, what do we have?
Well, you're probably more positioned than anybody to be the next mayor.
I don't know about that.
Everybody knows you. Everybody can go unmute for a few minutes if you wish, especially Steve Finley. Steve, do you want to talk a bit about Saturday with the proviso that it is totally voluntary, of course, and nobody who doesn't feel comfortable should think of coming. And we have work gloves that everybody will get, compliments of Luann Arendado, who sent us 80 pairs of these work gloves as a gift to Summerlin. And of course, we'll affect social distancing for sure. Steve, do you want to come on with your speaker view?
Give me 1 second here. My dogs decided to start barking as soon as you announced me.
So that's not a real that's a real background.
Okay, we're out here, yes, and the sun playing on me. So, good morning, everyone. So we have apologize for that. The doorbell rang and everything at the same time as Glenn introduced me. So, but we're doing the police Memorial Park cleanup. Greg has been great helping me get that started. We did a walkthrough. We're gonna do this on Saturday. We're gonna do a little social beforehand. We'll have some peeling fruit like oranges and bananas, and we'll probably do some individually packed pastries as well as coffee, juices, and bottled water for everyone. And we'll keep our social distancing standards. I know Glenn had mentioned that we're also going to be having gloves that were donated by the governor, which will be great, from the district governor. So that will be exciting. But if you have yard tools such as that, we're going to be doing some pressure washing on some of the equipment, raking the sand, pulling a few weeds. Greg, am I missing anything else on that?
Greg may have had to leave to go to the doctor.
Okay, so I think those are the big things that we have going on. But we'll go out. We're going to plan on doing a little social from 7 to 8, and then we'll work until no later than 10 o'clock before the heat really kicks in, and I can start my staycation for the weekend. So.
And that will give us our 24th service project of the year. And if anybody wants to go to myrotary.org, you'll be able to see all the service work that we've done all year. And for our last session, which will be on the 30th, and we're going to move it from a morning session to an evening session, probably starting at 5:30, we'll certainly have a retroactive to take us through the whole year, beginning with the Patriot Parade on July 4th. And by the way, the Patriot Parade has returned the $1,000 that we paid for it, and it's a virtual parade now. And our colleague, Dave Padgett, will be our representative, right, Linda?
That's right. The video shows Dave catching the baseball and then passing it on to the next person in the parade. It's very clever. And Tommy, with the Summerlin Council, has been very innovative and thanks us so much for participating.
Do you want to continue and just close the meeting with a summary of that amazing survey that you've been doing?
Absolutely. So let's take a look at the survey. All right, here's our survey. And it was responded to by 45 members, which is really very, very good for a survey of this type. So you can see that it's fairly evenly divided between the members of the club who feel comfortable attending live meetings right now and those who would rather wait until at least September. Some don't want to come to any live meetings this year, and some put comments that they'll be comfortable once there is some kind of good treatment or vaccine for the virus. While we have virtual meetings, it's kind of all over the board on what time is good, but the 7:30 and 5:30 time frame seems to work for most people. Most of the people said that they would like to return to regular monthly dues in July. Now, that being said, there were a few who said that they didn't feel like they should have to pay for breakfast if there was no breakfast. And I would ask those folks to get in touch with either me or Lee Weber personally to see what we can work out. Of course, the option for everyone is to become an executive member and pay a lesser amount in dues and not be responsible for breakfast. Now, the survey is going to be published in the newsletter, and there are links so that you'll know that Linda is telling the truth. And you can look at both surveys yourself. We have to do 2 surveys because I'm on the free plan, and it's limited to 40 persons per survey. And fortunately, we have more people than that. Any questions?
Now we're seeing everybody. So if people want to come with their video, we can see your pretty faces before we say goodbye. Okay. Open it up. Any questions, thoughts, ideas?
And I apologize for my background. Terry and I had just moved, so it's still a work in process here. So
Where did you move?
we moved a week and a half ago.
Really?
Where did you move to, Kevin?
Well, I won't know where to deliver the check now.
We used to live around the block from Neil, but he brought the property values down, so we had to get out of it.
After I moved, you're right.
Yeah.